Hey boys and girls, today we're going to do Math 6.11 and we're going to be looking at how can properties of addition help you add fractions with unlike denominators. So before we go on, we want to review a couple of things. So the first thing that we're going to review is commutative property. Commutative property is the numbers can be put in any order in the addition problem. So think we're going to flip-flop them around. So an example is 1.5 plus 3/4 is the same as 3/4 plus 1/2. You can flip-flop them around and nothing will happen. You cannot do that in subtraction. You can only do it in addition. Associative property is any numbers can be put next to each other to make it easier to solve. So be thinking next to each other. So that's when we would use parentheses to do those numbers first. So with associative property, we use parentheses to show that we're doing something first. So for example, here we have 2/9 plus 1/8. It's this plus 3/8 is equal to 3/8 plus 1/8 plus 2/9. Here I put the eighths together. Instead of putting them here, I'm going to add these together first because that's going to make it easier to solve. So the answer to this question, how can properties of addition help you add fractions with unlike denominators, is answered here. By grouping fractions differently, you can bring together fractions with like denominators for easier computing, so to make it easier on you. Okay, so again, the goal here is to group fractions differently so we can bring together fractions with like denominators for easier computing. So we want to look at the problem and look at where we have like denominators and put those together. So here's our example, 2 5/8 plus 1 2/3 plus 1 1/8. So we're going to use commutative property first to solve this problem. So first, we are going to we're going to take 2 5/8 and put it with a fraction that has the same denominator. So I'm going to put 2 5/8 next to 1 1/8, and then I'm going to put the 1 2/3 over here. Okay, so now I'm going to what I'm going to do for associative property, I am going to use associative property to group them together. So I'm going to group them together. I'm going to solve for them first. So now I'm going to add those like fractions. So I'm going to add the fractions first. So I'm going to get 6/8, and then I'm going to add the whole numbers. Now I'm going to add my other fraction. Okay, so this is how I got that. Now I'm going to write equivalent fractions with like denominators, then add. So now I have to figure out, I have to make these equivalent fractions. So I have to find the ladder method. So my common denominator is 24. So that means I need to turn this with a denominator of 4 and this with a denominator of 4. So just going to erase that. So my LCD, my LCD is going to be 4. So I'm going to multiply by 3. So 6 times 3 is 18, plus 1 times, that's 8 to get 24, so I have 16. Okay, so now I have like denominators. So now I can go ahead and add those together, which would be 4, and then 18 plus 16 is 34 over 24. So now I have 4 and then 34 over 24. So now I'm going to rename. I'm going to pull out what I can because that's too much. I'm going to pull out a whole. So I'm going to subtract 24/24. That's going to be 10 over 24. If I pull that out, that's because I'm adding it over here. And now I'm going to simplify, so I have to think what number can go into both of these. And I know that you can divide 2 into both of those. So I'm going to get 5 and 5/12. So that's my answer for that. Okay, here's another problem. I am going to kind of walk you through this, and then I'm going to have you solve it on your own. So number 1, part A, we have 5 1/4 plus 3/4 and 1 and 5/12. So first, you're going to group the fractions with like denominators together first. So you're going to put the two fractions that have the same denominators here. So same numbers with same denominators here. Denoms. Then you're going to add the one that's not the same. Plus the one that's not the same would go here. Now you're going to add those together. And then you're going to solve and simplify. Okay, for part B, problem B, you're going to switch the fractions around so the denominators are next to each other. So you're going to use the commutative property. So you're going to probably switch. You want these to be together, so you're probably going to switch these with each other. Then you're going to have the fractions how you want it so they're all together. You're going to want to have like denominators plus this one's random. Then you're going to group them together, so you're going to group them like we did here. That's grouping them together. Then we're going to add by writing equivalent fractions. So after you add these together, then you're going to figure out the equivalent fraction. Use the ladder method here, and then you're going to simplify if you need to. All right, guys, go ahead and show me your work, and hopefully this is easy for you this time. All right, thank you.